Hello everyone, and welcome to the review of the Fujifilm X100 limited edition. So it's been a while since X100 has been released, and the reason I'm doing this review now is because the price of X100s have come down quite a lot, especially the used ones. So I thought it might be interesting to do a review for people who are now interested in the X100 because it's now in their price range. So this is the limited edition. It's basically identical to the normal X100 besides the black color scheme. And in addition to this, Fujifilm provides several other items with the limited edition. First, there is the leather case. So it's a two-part case. This case, the bottom part you can attach onto the camera like so. And offers protection basically on the bottom and the sides, and basically it gets secured once you have a strap attached, and then you just click this button. And the other part of the case will attach using these two buttons down here. So let me do that. And basically it wraps around and comes over the camera like this, and there's a magnet on the bottom that closes the case. So it's a very nice case, has X100 on the top, and it's leather, black. I believe if you don't get the limited edition, you're only limited to the brown case. So the black looks very nicely on this, and you could just shoot like this, or usually I just don't use the other half of the case. So on top of the case, Fujifilm also provides 3 additional items here. This is a screw ring. So the lens by itself does not have a filter thread, so you cannot attach any filter to it. But if you unscrew this part, then you can attach the screw mount like so, and now this has a 49mm thread, and a filter is also provided, UV filter, that's multi-coated. Also you have a hood that's provided, so you can, the hood attaches by just rotating on, and it looks like this. So it looks very nice. One thing to note is you can't attach the cap anymore after you put on the hood, but however you can still use the hood with the screw mount. So this still works. So you can have the filter on there. But if you do this, then this case doesn't work because this isn't deep enough. So just little things to keep in mind. The parts aren't built for being used all at once. So alright, so with all these additional items, the limited edition sells for, I think, $600 more right now as of this video than the normal version. Basically it comes down to the colors, so if you really like black, there's no other way around it than to get a limited edition besides getting a permanent marker and then drawing the silver version on yourself. So let me give a quick tour of the camera body and then talk a bit about the handling of the camera. So here's the front of the camera. It's a very rangefinder style kind of camera, as you can see. Here's the viewfinder, the flash, and here's a bit of a grip. The grip, you hold it like this, and since the body is a little thick, it actually feels okay. I would prefer usually, a more substantial grip, but since rangefinder style cameras are always usually just like a flat rectangular brick, this is what they're after, so they only give us a little bit of grip right here. So this little lever here, that's to switch between optical viewfinder and the electronic viewfinder, and I'll go into more detail about that later. So for example, right now is optical viewfinder, and when I go like this, it shuts off to let the LCD shine through inside, and that's now the electronic viewfinder. And here's the AF assist, it's a white LED, and here's the fixed fixed focal length lens that's 23 millimeters f2. That's APS-C size sensor inside, so this means it's equivalent to about 35 millimeters in full frame kind of sense. And the aperture is changed by rotating this ring, and it goes in full stops. So you do have the opportunity to change between full stops by being at 2, for example, and then moving this lever left or right, and then you can go 2.2, for example. But this is the main control of the aperture, A being auto. This is the focus ring. It's very smooth. And moving on to the side, we have the focus selector. In the middle, single autofocus, continuous autofocus, and manual focus. I prefer the AFS to be actually at the end, so it's easy to slide to it in a hurry, but this is the way it's built on the X100. So on the back, we have the playback button, the auto exposure, auto focus, view mode. You switch between full-time LCD or eye sensor, so when you get close it switches to the viewfinder, or full-time viewfinder. And the back you have AF lock, AE lock, macro, drive mode, flash mode, white balance, display. This basically changes the display mode, RAW, switch between JPEG or JPEG plus RAW. Here's a viewfinder, of course. There's a diopter control right here, and the eye sensor. And right now, I don't know if it's easy to see here, but this is the hybrid viewfinder right now with optical viewfinder plus LCD overlay. So it works very well in practice, actually. And here is this part. This is a small lever that you can turn left or right. It's not a dial, but you can press in to set things. This thing right here is also a dial. Sorry for the camera not being focused, it's just the OMD on continuous AF mode. And moving on to the right, we have a small door, and that's HDMI and USB. On the top is where actually a lot of the action happens. We have the on-off button, the shutter release. It's got a hard stop, and you can also attach a shutter release cable to this. It's threaded. This is exposure compensation, so very easy to set. It's, I think, got just the amount of friction here not to accidentally move it. This is the shutter speed dial, A being auto, and this is 1/4000, for example. And if you want to go to longer than 1/8 of a or 1/4 of a second, you can go to T and then use this lever here to change the shutter speed to longer time intervals. There's also, of course, bulb. So the way this dial works with the aperture dial or the control is, if this is in auto and aperture ring is not in auto, then you're in aperture priority mode. If this were in auto and shutter speed dial is not, then you'll be in shutter priority. And if both are in auto, then it will be in program mode. And if neither is in auto, then you have full manual mode. So pretty intuitive. There is no, of course, mode dial because of this, but it works very well. By just single glance on the camera, you can know which mode you're in and what's your shutter speed and aperture value. And on the bottom, there's not much going on except the tripod mount is not in line with the lens. And here's the battery compartment. You have your SD card and a battery. This battery it lasts for about 300 shots. And in practice, I do get approximately 300. So I want to talk a bit about the hybrid viewfinder on the X100, and that's, I think, a first on any camera to have an optical viewfinder with an LCD overlay on it. And this is what it looks like. So you look through the optical viewfinder, so you'll see what you would see otherwise, but you also get this electronic overlay that tells you exposure compensation, flash mode, number of exposures remaining, and just ISO number, things like that, that usually are off the optical viewfinder, such as on the bottom on SLRs, but in this case it's overlaid on top. So there is really no resolution to speak of because it's optical. You do have the option of switching to an EVF with this lever right here. So once you, sorry, the OMD is just not wanting to focus. There we go. So if you do this, this will shut. It has to shut because if light is coming through, then it's very hard to see the LCD. So now this is an LCD that's 100% electronic. So of course this gives you 100% view, whereas the optical viewfinder will only give you 90% accurate view. And the other thing is there is a parallax error because the lens sees one thing and this is at a different position, so this will see a different thing. So to correct for that, whenever you focus on something, then the X100 will correct for it by moving the frame a bit. And of course it's not going to focus, and I'll talk about the AF in a little bit, but it does tell you how the frame will shift due to parallax so that you can predict the parallax error before you press. One thing I definitely want to mention about the X100 is its autofocus. So the AF has always been an issue for X100, but there has been several firmware updates addressing that issue. This one is on the latest as of this video, it's 1.30. But still with this latest firmware I'm having a lot of trouble doing quick AF. For example, when I'm on the street and I take a picture, sometimes it focuses on the background than the person, and in general I feel like it has trouble focusing on anything within 5 feet very quickly. So for example, the optical or the hybrid viewfinder, right now I'm trying to take a picture of these things in front, and the OMD is having trouble focusing on the hybrid viewfinder, but it's always giving me a red box and it cannot focus on these 3 items. And that's because it's too close. So if you want to take pictures of things that are close, then you have to go into macro mode, and that requires the use of the EVF or the LCD. But even in that case, it's having trouble focusing on these things. So let me do a quick demonstration of it trying to focus in the macro mode of things that are close. And you can see it just cannot focus, and I'm giving it quite a bit of contrast. And this one finally focused. And this one cannot focus, it's red again. And sometimes it gives a green box, but it's completely out of focus. And this is in the macro mode when it takes its time trying to get a correct focus. So when you're not in macro mode, you're limited to basically things that are not within your close proximity, and it's very difficult to, if you're walking with people, to take pictures of them. So that's very disappointing. The other thing is manual focus is very difficult because, the feel of the ring is fine, but it takes many turns to get the, you see right now it's moving. Let's say I rotate the ring, it's not very responsive. It still rotates after I stop rotating, and it takes many turns to get it to go to one end versus the other. As you can tell, it's taking me about 10 seconds to go from infinity to the closest point. So this is just ridiculous. For a camera that's aimed at street photography, it's extremely difficult to take pictures quickly. So for the AF department, this camera really could do a lot better. And when I shoot along with an OMD, the OMD just never fails, no matter how low the light or how close the subject is. And it's just a world difference of AF speed compared to the X100, and it could be frustrating at times. So I definitely missed a few shots because of the AF speed of the X100. Now, despite the slow AF, the image quality of X100 is very good. So I'll say comparable to a Nikon D7000 or NEX5N kind of image quality. It's a 12 megapixel sensor that's APS-C sized, and when you look at it, it's the noise level at high ISO such as 6400 or 12800 is very comparable to the top of the line APS-C size sensor right now. And if you want more detailed noise comparisons, there's plenty of websites out there that you can look at comparisons for, but from my user experience, the noise is very well controlled. So in terms of movie, this camera is limited to 720p, and the movie quality is nothing to write home about, so I wouldn't be getting this camera for shooting movies. And of course, it's a fixed length lens, so 35mm equivalent, and if you are used to using prime lenses, then this camera will be right at home for you. But if you like zoom lenses, I would definitely look elsewhere. So if you're not used to zooming with your feet, or if you are traveling, and then usually when you travel, I prefer a super zoom kind of lens like 10x. So this definitely would not be a great companion if you are traveling and want to have a versatile kind of camera. This would be great for street photography, but there are some AF issues, like I mentioned. So overall, it's a very general purpose focal length, and you have to think about if having a prime 35mm is right for you. And one last thing I want to mention is the ND filter. So right now I assigned this function key to be the ND filter because if it is sunny outside, f2 will be too large an aperture. So at f2, one thing that they don't advertise is that the shutter speed of this camera is limited to 1,000. So it cannot go to 1/4000th. And it has something to do with the leaf shutter that's inside, which, by the way, is very silent, so that's a good thing. So because of that, they provide an ND filter that gives you about 3 stops drop of light, so that will make it able to shoot outside at f2 when it's relatively sunny. So that's a nice thought, but also a strange constraint. So overall, they kind of cancel out. And I know I said that was the last thing I want to mention, but I just remembered one more thing, and that is a defect on many X100s, and that's the sticky aperture blade problem, or SAB in short. And that's when the aperture blade will get stuck at a certain aperture when it's set. So for example, when you set f8, it would actually only close down to f4 or f2, for example. So that apparently has affected quite a number of X100s, and apparently the limited edition is not immune to that, but since only 10,000 are built, then there are not too many users reporting that problem. So make sure you get a receipt. If you're buying used, you have to use the receipt to repair it if it does happen, and it seems to happen around 1,000 or 2,000 shots or so. So keep that in mind. Now in terms of price, this right now is valued at $1,600 for new, and the X100 is about 1,000. So at that price, given the quirks of this camera, mostly the AF, I would say also the fact that it's a fixed lens. So I would say look elsewhere for another camera. For example, the X Pro 1 is about a similar price as the limited edition, and it does give you the flexibility of interchangeable lenses. Or the OMD, the NEX series. Those are all very good cameras and are priced in very similar range. So in terms of value per dollar, I think the X100 is a little bit on the low side. So, but if money is no object, then sure, this would be a great addition to your cameras. But I definitely don't see this as your sole camera, so as the only camera that you have for walking around, for traveling, for portraits and such, because its use is really limited. Frankly speaking, it's limited to 35 millimeters, kind of a walk around kind of camera. Not great for traveling because it has no zoom, not great for portraits because it's too wide, and not great for night photography because the AF is poor in low light, and not good for anything that's close to you in distance because it just cannot focus. So, but overall, I can see a lot of people liking this camera for its rangefinder style and for its manual controls. So if you can get back, or you can get past the quirks that it has, then I think this could be a very nice camera for you. But once again, I don't recommend it as the only camera in your bag. Alright, so this has been the review of the Fujifilm X100 limited edition. So as always, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you next time.